Hello and welcome to Visual Programming. A lot of programming videos on YouTube often come packaged with text-based visuals and awkward explanations, leaving people generally confused about the concepts of coding. My goal here is to try to make programs more understandable with visual representations rather than with text-based representations as allowed. Not everything can be solved with a picture, but I do believe programming in general doesn't have to be so difficult to learn. So with that said, welcome to my channel and let's get started. Before we take a look at variables, the first thing we must do is understand why we have them in the first place and what role they play in the code you write. Variables are like placeholders that store your code into memory. This makes referencing your data easy to manage and manipulate. The second reason is the variable names makes it more user-friendly for developers to find and use their code. With labels, it makes managing your variables much more efficient, and it also gives meaning to what type of data you're referencing. For example, you know when you're writing code regarding a player and his weapon, or an enemy and his magic fireball. Labeling your variables gives you at least some hint of what type of data may be inside. Now let's take a look at some examples of variables. Here I have listed a few variables in different languages to show you how they look. The syntax for each language is different when it comes to writing variables, but the principle remains the same. For JavaScript, variables are created by typing var and then the name of your variable. In this case, Turkey. For PHP, a dollar symbol is used for creating the variable, followed by the name. For Java, the data type is used as a precursor, followed by the name. Let's dive more closely into the JavaScript variable to break down how it works. Variables have 5 keys in their structure. The first key is the var keyword. This tells the JavaScript program that you want to create a new variable. Without using the var keyword, your computer program will not know it's creating a new variable. So in order to create a new variable, we must first write down var in every new variable we create. The second key is your variable's name. This will act as a placeholder for your code every time you want to reference it for later. Keep in mind that your variable names do have restrictions, but these will be covered in a later video. The third key is the equal sign, or also known as the assignment operator. After you have declared your variable and given it a name, the computer now needs to know what you're going to assign your variable. More on the equal sign will be covered shortly. The fourth key is your actual code. Here is where you'll be writing whatever you want to assign your variable the data you want it to be referencing to. This can be strings, numbers, or Boolean values, but they can also be more robust and complex data like functions, arrays, and objects. The fifth and final key is the semicolon. This tells the computer program that you're ready to end your statement and to start a new statement later down the line. Think of it like a period at the end of a sentence. Some programming languages relax when it comes to semicolons, and you don't even need to add one at the end. Other programming languages won't even start if you do not add one. Each language is different in this regard, but it's always best practice to add your semicolons. Now, let's get back to the equal sign, or what is known as the assignment operator. Variables come in 2 parts, and the equal sign acts as a line drawn in the sand. On the left-hand side of the assignment operator is known as the declarative side. This tells your program that you are declaring a new variable and giving it a name. On the right-hand side of the assignment operator is known as the value side. This is where you assign your code to the variable you just declared. Keep this in mind because one error you will likely come across often is variable x is undefined, x being whatever the variable name is. What that basically means is you have a declared variable somewhere in your code, but it has no values assigned to it. The error can quickly be solved by adding value to the undefined variable. Now that we understand how to create a variable, how might we go about applying this to real-world applications? Let's create a few variables to give you some examples. Keep in mind, though, that these variables are JavaScript variables. So first we will declare a variable called name, who holds a value of John Doe. Next, let's declare a variable called age that will hold the value of 30. Then we will declare another variable called occupation, whose value holds programmer. And there you can see a picture of our programmer. So far, so good. We have a programmer named John Doe who is 30. He also doesn't have a mouth, but that's not important. Now we will declare that John is a drinker, and we will give this a Boolean value of true. But John doesn't like to smoke, so we'll give this a Boolean value of false. Last, we'll declare a variable called cash and assign it a value of about around 1700. John's banking. Now, let's go to CodePen and see how we can apply these variables in real time. Okay, here I am at CodePen, and as you can see, on the left side I got my CSS code, and on the right side I got my JavaScript. Also inside is all the variables we just got done declaring and giving values to. Name, John Doe, age 30, etc. So how may we apply this to a website? Well, one of the things we can do, since we're in JavaScript, is we can type document.write, and then inside the quotations we can write whatever we want. So hello world, semicolon, and that pops up on the screen. Now, if I was to do this manually, I could type a whole paragraph and just keep going until I'm done and be finished. But one of the things you can do is take your variables with their stored data and use those instead. This helps for reducing redundancy later down on the line. So for example, I can say name. This will reference the variable and John Doe pops up. Let's say I don't want name, let's say I want his age. I can type in age 30. Now, one of the cool features I can do now is I can say, I can begin to mix it. So I can say, hello, my name is, and leave a space, plus name, John Doe. And then I can begin writing out full sentences. Every time you want to concatenate your sentences, make sure you always put a plus between your variables. So in this case, I'm going to add another sentence. So I'm going to say John Doe plus a period. And then I want to start a new line. So for those of you that don't know, BR stands for break. It basically references a line break, and it will start on a new line or a new sentence. So I can say my age is, and then type in age 30. Let's add another period, and then I can say my occupation is programmer. And then from there I can say, am I a drinker? And then I can say drinker, and that equates to true. And just one more. Let's go ahead and make a new line. I have this much money. And then just type in cash. Okay, that's pretty good. So basically you can take variables and reference them in your code. So later you could print them out on the screen, but you can also do other stuff like you could do math functions. You can add these references to functions, so you could make lists. You could do a lot of stuff with variables, but basically the point of variables is to store your data and then later use it as references. I can even go ahead, for example, and change name, and then when I reference it a second time, it'll no longer be John Doe, it'll be whatever new name I've given it, and so on and so forth. So that's it for this CodePen exercise. I hope you guys enjoyed it. For some people who are experienced at coding may take a look at this video and wonder why I left some details out. For example, what about data types or case sensitivity or word reservations? One of the problems I always had personally while I was learning, when people teach concepts, it's best to leave the finer details out of the equation until the student grasps the concept for themselves. Once they understand, then you can go ahead and give them more finer details to learn, but not beforehand because otherwise it confuses them. These topics will be discussed later in another video, but for now, my goal is to get people to first understand variables before trying to give them all the little extra details that may hinder that understanding. Please let me know down below for some feedback on how well this content was presented so I can improve on future iterations. Thanks for watching Visual Programming, and I will see you guys in the next video.